In section 2.1, we're going to be talking about linear functions, and everything in here is going to be a review of what you've done in Algebra 1. Algebra 2, you did a little in geometry. You also did it again if you took math analysis. So our slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. If the slope is positive, that means that the function itself is increasing from left to right. If it's negative, of course, it's decreasing. If it's 0, it would be a constant function. And then if it's undefined, that gives me a vertical line. So we have the slope formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And from this formula, y equals mx plus b, we know that b is the y-intercept. So this gives us the initial or original amount. So this first question is one that you'll see in your homework, and it says a town's population grows linearly. Now it's important that it says the word linearly because later in the chapters that we're going to cover, we're going to be doing things that are a different style of growth. So it's important to understand that. So it says that in 2003, the population was 35,000. So you can think of this as being your initial population. And I'm not using the year 2003 because of the way it says the rest of the question. It says it has grown 1,200 people each year. So that's going to give me a slope. And because I'm growing, it's going to be a positive slope. And then it says to write an equation P, X years after 2003. So that's where the 0 came in. So my slope is 1,200. X is the number of years after the year 2000. And then my initial population was 35,000. So this would be the equation that you would type in online. Another kind of question that they're going to ask you is to give you a function that says C of n is equal to 13 plus 0.05n. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite it so that my slope comes first. So that's 0.05n plus 13. The second thing I'm going to do is write underneath this that this is y is equal to mx plus b. Now, just because my equation has changed variables doesn't mean that anything happens. It says that n is the number of minutes that I speak or talk on my cell phone plan, I think is what this is. And then C of n or y are my monthly charges. So if that's the case, then x is the number of minutes that I'm speaking, and C of n is my y value, so that will tell me how much my monthly bill is. So the rate of change is going to be 0.05 because that's my slope, and it may want that as a fraction, so that would be 5 over 100 or 1 over 20. I'm not sure if it wants decimals or fractions. I didn't write that part down. And then the initial value would be, of course, 13. Now, what that means is that I'm paying $13 even if I don't talk any minutes. And then I pay 5 cents for every minute that I do talk. All right, another one that we have has an elevation. E of t is my elevation in feet. So this is my y value. And then my t is time in seconds, so that would be my x value. So as I look at this equation that they've given me, I have E of t is equal to 2,600 minus 80t. So I'm going to write that so that it has my slope first. So I have negative 80t plus 2,600. And I know that that is the same thing as y equals mx plus b. And that's just to give me a reference point. So the equation tells us that the person started at an elevation of 2,600 feet and this one is a height of, You begin at a height or an elevation of 2,600 feet, and his elevation is decreasing, and I know it's decreasing because the slope is a negative number, by 80 feet per second. So understanding what these questions are giving us and putting it in context is very important. So sometimes they're just going to ask you for an equation, and the two things that you need to come up with an equation are a slope and a y-intercept. So the first thing I'm going to do is label my ordered pair points x1, y1, x2, y2. And the first thing I'm going to be able to find is my slope. So I have 18 minus a negative 3, and then I have 3 minus a negative 4. So this is going to give me 21 over 7, which gives me a slope of 3. Now that's not an equation, that's just my slope. So at that point, I have a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to use y minus y1 is equal to m parenthesis x minus x1. And I'm going to use both my slope and my x1, y1. So I have y minus a negative 3. My slope is 3. And then I have x minus a negative 4. And to solve for y, I will distribute this 3 to both of those. So I have that that's equal to 3x plus 12. And then I subtract my 3. So I have y is equal to 3x plus 9. You all sometimes will go through and use y equals mx plus b and find b. Just be sure that you put the 9 back in, because this would be the equation that they're looking for. All right, they can also ask you to do the exact same thing, and instead of giving you actual ordered pair points to look at, they're giving you those bits of information so that they're in function form. So this ordered pair point is negative 5, negative 3, and this ordered pair point would be 1, negative 1, and you'll do the exact same process. So I have my slope is negative 1 minus a negative 3, and I have 1 minus a negative 5. So I'm going to have 2 over 6, which reduces to 1/3. And at that point, I go through and find the rest of my equation. This one I'll do y equals mx plus b just to show you. So if I start with y equals mx plus b, I choose one of my two ordered pair points. It doesn't matter which one you use. I have negative 3 is equal to 1/3 times negative 5 plus b. So this gives me negative 3 is equal to negative 5/3 plus b. And then we have to get a common denominator of 3. So negative 9/3 plus 5/3 plus b, is equal to b. So then I know that b is equal to negative 4/3. And again, if you use this pattern, you have to make sure that you're using a slope and the y-intercept to come up with your equation. So your equation is y is equal to, my slope is 1/3, x, and then my b is negative 4/3. So this would be the equation that you're looking for online. I have copied and pasted this question from your homework set. It says a clothing business finds there's a linear relationship, and again, it's telling you linear. That's important to note because later it won't necessarily be linear. That you have a linear relationship between the number of shirts N that it can sell and the price P it can charge per shirt. So N is your X and P is your Y. Keep that in mind. So in particular, historical data shows that 7,000 shirts can be sold at a price of $83. So that's my first ordered pair point that we come up with. All right. Again, notice that the number of shirts is your X and your price that you charge is P. And it also shows that 13,000 shirts can be sold at a price of $41. Okay, so you've got that same scenario going on, and it says that it wants us to come up with this equation in the form P is equal to MN plus B. All right, and just like I've been doing through this whole process, that just means Y equals MX plus B. All right, so I'm finding the exact same thing. It wants me to come up with an equation. Now, I want to note something, and I'm going to highlight it here. Round the value of your slope to 3 decimal places. Okay, so you have to be able to round properly. So as we go to find the slope, I have my slope is equal to 41 minus 38. And I'm going to divide that by 13,000 minus 7,000. So we have 41 minus 38 gives us 3, and 13,000 minus 7,000 is 6,000. So when we divide 3 by 6,000, that's going to give us a decimal point of 5e to the negative 4. Now your calculator may have just told you that it was 0.0005. okay? Whichever one you get is great. When I round that to 3 decimal places, I look here and I'm looking at the 5 and it bumps it up. So my slope for this equation is 0.001. Once I have my slope, I have to go through and I have to be able to find the rest of my information, which will be my y-intercept. So I'm going to use the p equals mn plus b. So p is one of my y values up at the top. I'm going to use the 38,700. So my slope, I've just rounded to 0.001. I multiply m by 7,000. And then I add b. So I'm trying to solve for b to come up with the equation. If I do 0.001 times 7,000, that's going to give me the number 7 plus b. So b then is going to be equal to 31. So I'm taking this y-intercept and I'm taking this slope and I'm plugging it into this equation. You have to be very careful that you are checking to make sure that you use the proper variables, not y and x, but p and n. And this would be the equation that they're looking for.